Hundreds gathering for the funeral today in Minneapolis for Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband. Among the attendees, former President Joe Biden and former Vice President Kamala Harris. Hortman and her husband were shot and killed in their home earlier this month in what law enforcement tells us was part of a planned strike of attacks against Democratic elected officials. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz delivering the eulogy honoring the legacy of the Hortmans and what they leave behind.
Melissa Hortman will be remembered as the most consequential speaker in Minnesota history. I get to remember as a close friend, a mentor, and the most talented legislator I ever known. For 7 years, I have had the privilege of signing her agenda into law. I know millions of Minnesotans get to live their lives better because she and Mark chose public service and politics.
ABC's Christian Cordero joins me now with more on this. Christian, what else did we hear during the service?
Well, you heard Governor Tim Walz there, Phil, talk about who Melissa Hortman was as a member of the state's Congress, the state's legislature. He also provided some color of who she was as a person, right? She and Mark Hortman were parents of 2 adult children now. We heard from their son, Colin Hortman. He delivered a prayer, and you could just tell how hard that was. And one thing he said that really struck me was he said, "Lord, make me an instrument of your peace where there is hatred. Let me sow love." So there was just a lot of really chilling moments, no doubt about it, a lot of tears, I'm sure, in that basilica there in Minneapolis. And then also some moments of levity. There was a family friend who told these really incredible, colorful stories about the Hortmans, really paying tribute to the life they lived.
So Father Dan Griffith delivered the homily and addressed political violence in this country. What has been the conversation in Washington about political violence after this particular shooting?
Well, of course, because this is in a very politically violent time, right? A heightened threat culture across the nation, particularly for people who are perceived to resemble certain politics. And we know that these were 2 victims of 4 of the Democratic caucus in Minnesota. So what the resounding message here in Washington is condemnation against what happened. And in fact, it's more than just kind of words and the rhetoric that we've seen, but also in a piece of paper legislation, or a resolution, I should say, that was unanimously supported condemning these actions.
And Christian, we know the suspect who was accused of carrying out these horrific killings and other shootings appeared in court recently. What came out of that hearing?
Well, the hearing was scheduled for yesterday, and his attorney argued to the judge that she would like for the hearing itself to be pushed back. He hasn't entered a plea yet, so that's kind of the next thing we're waiting for. She asked that the hearing be pushed back because her client hasn't gotten any sleep, she says, due to the conditions that he's subjected to in jail. So a lot of conversation around that, but the judge inevitably did push the hearing back to July 3rd.
All right, Christian Cordero, thanks for the update. Appreciate it.